Getting Sketchy Live, brought to you by thevirtualinstructor.com. And now, let's get sketchy.
Hello there, everyone. Matt here with thevirtualinstructor.com, and welcome to Getting Sketchy Live, which is the best show
greatest,
on YouTube.
The greatest
live show on YouTube. As you can tell, it's maybe not, since I can't even get that line right. But anyway, welcome everybody. What is Getting Sketchy? Getting Sketchy is where either myself or my good friend and fellow artist and art teacher Ashley Hurst tries to create a drawing for you guys within 45 minutes, give or take a few minutes. And of course, we sprinkle some instruction in there as well. And tonight, Ashley's going to be doing the drawing, and he's gearing up over there. How are you doing tonight, Ashley?
I'm doing really well. I'm just looking at my notes. I did make a little drawing for us to look at before we start, just to analyze our subject a little bit. So we'll get into that in just a minute.
All right, and I'm excited to see that too. If you are joining us live on YouTube, there is a chat box. You can, of course, make comments and ask questions during tonight's broadcast. If you do have a question or comment that's directed at myself or Ashley, if you put it in all capital letters, that will help me see it a little bit easier amongst all the comments and questions, since I'm going to be manning the chat box tonight. If you're new to the channel and you haven't done so yet, I would encourage you to subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell so you're notified when we upload new videos and we do things like this Getting Sketchy episode that we're doing tonight. And also, we have a fantastic membership program over at thevirtualinstructor.com, which after this broadcast, I'll be continuing my live lesson series over there for members. The membership program also includes a variety of drawing and painting courses on a variety of drawing media and subject matter, weekly live lessons, which we're going to be doing after this broadcast, and weekly critiques as part of the Members Minute, and a year-long curriculum for visual arts teachers, which includes everything that you would need to teach for an entire year, and this is directed at secondary level students. If you want to check out our membership program, as I mentioned before, there's a link in the description below this video. You can go check it out. We go check it out a little bit later because we're getting ready to get sketchy here. There's also 3 course videos and ebooks that you can check out for free too. If you want to just dabble a little bit, get your toes wet in the water there, there's a link in the description below this video for that as well. Now, I think I've said everything that I'm supposed to say tonight.
I think you got it all in this time.
All right. So I will be going through and saying hello to everyone in just a minute in the chat box, because everybody's telling me where they are, and it's from all over the world, which is fantastic and just crazy to think about. It's also pretty cool too. So
yeah, thanks for staying up with us tonight, wherever you are.
Absolutely.
I see a lot of you guys are in the AM hours right now, so drink a pot of coffee if you need to.
Yeah, and it feels like we're in the early AM hours here with daylight savings, and
that's right. It's early here, but it's still been dark for quite a while.
Yeah, it was dark at like 5:20 or something.
Yeah, at least.
I don't like the dark. I like the summer. I don't like the winter. Anyway, I think we're ready to get into this. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's go ahead and switch the cameras over.
Switch over.
All right, so we are drawing a humble subject tonight. It's my personal 2-step step ladder. I guess it's 3 steps if you count the very top. But this ladder has seen a lot of usage. It does fit into my motif of something you can walk on. And it was a struggle to get through this theme in these last 5 weeks, and I'll be glad to close it out. But this subject is, though humble, I think there's a lot of great lessons in here. In fact, my own drawing students draw stools and chairs, wooden stools and chairs, early in our own drawing classes to start to try to capture the relationships between negative spaces or negative shapes, and we have a lot of those in this ladder. Now, Matt, would you remove the photograph for just a second, and we'll take a look at a little 2-point perspective drawing that I put together for you guys to look at. So we're not drawing this way, and this ladder isn't exactly in proportion of our photograph. It needs to be a little wider. Don't worry about that. This is just an analysis that I did of the ladder to begin with, just to start thinking about where the eye level is. You know, understanding and thinking about where you are in space in relation to your subject is very important. Now, we draw from photographs usually here, or all the time here at Getting Sketchy, and so we often draw in a way that takes advantage of the picture plane, of the space around our subject. But this drawing doesn't have a picture plane around it. And if you're not drawing from a photograph, you don't have a picture plane around the photograph from which to measure and to work. And so I just wanted to show an alternate way that you could approach the same subject. This is called two-point perspective. And these two dots manage the rate at which the two sides of our ladder recede into space or pinch and become smaller into space. So I just wanted to show you this. If you like this type of drawing, if you think you'd like to learn this type of drawing and you haven't, this is linear perspective, and you can do it with 1 dot, 2 dots or vanishing points, and even 3 vanishing points, which is very exciting. So I'm not going to be drawing this way, but I wanted to show you this because this is the kind of thing that I hold in my mind a lot of times when I am working with a subject that has a clear sort of perspective relationship across a side. So in my own, in our drawing tonight, we will consider where our eye level is and make sure that the parts of the ladder that are above the ladder, it feels like we're looking up at them, and the parts of the ladder below the eye level, make sure that it really feels like we're looking down at those. So anyway, just a little bit of a perspective analysis before we get started tonight. All right, I think we're ready to begin.
All right, that was a good I almost said exclamation. That's a good explanation.
Thank you. Thank you. And of course, I am drawing just on sketch paper. It is from this pad. It's the same pad that I had used the previous week. It's a Winsor Newton drawing pad, and the paper is 70 pounds. So it's just white drawing paper. I'm going to be working with graphite tonight, so I encourage you to follow along. One of the reasons I selected the ladder, it's a challenging subject, but I think it's doable, and I think we'll be able to get some good instruction in there along the way. A couple of my selections this season have been a real challenge to get through in 45 minutes, and I know that can be hard to follow along with and to keep up with sometimes. So hopefully we'll be able to move a little bit slower in the beginning and end up with a drawing that we're satisfied with.
All right, sounds good.
All right, I think we're ready to begin.
All right.
We'll bring up the clock.
I'm going to bring up the timer, and while Ashley's starting to make his initial marks, I'll just say hello. Let's see here. Sunny California, North Wells, Princeton, New Jersey, Vancouver, Washington, Olympia, Washington, Northern Indiana, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Minneapolis, Toronto, Canada, Midland, Michigan, New York City, Calgary, Alberta, Peachtree City, Georgia, Northeast Tennessee, Montreal, Quebec, Ontario, Switzerland, Texas, California. Hello, everybody. Another Alberta, Canada. Some of you guys are talking about snow that you were supposed to get or snow that you were supposed to get and didn't get. Well, I'm glad we're not getting any snow here yet. But the last couple of days have been pretty frigid.
It's looked like snow. The sky has looked like snow. It just hasn't been quite cold enough.
But we can't complain too much. I think it was in the 70s this past weekend.
Oh, it was beautiful.
Yeah, but I think those days are gone now.
And I believe we're going to have some relatively warm weather this weekend. But rainy,
really?
But rainy.
But rain?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
All right, so what I'm doing right now, I've got a reference in front of me, and I'm turning my pencil and laying it on different angles. The far left leg of our stool and the top. I'm just trying to find where those angles are. We may have to pull and slide these lines around. So try to be accurate with the angles, but don't worry so much about the placement just yet.
Now, you started off by talking about two-point perspective, and I know this already, but don't you think that it's helpful to at least have the knowledge of something like two-point perspective when you're drawing a subject like this that's in perspective?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I'm still sort of imagining where those vanishing points would be in space, even if I don't have them drawn out to the side of my artwork. All right. I started with some initial marks, thinking about how far away my subject was from the edges of the picture plane. And that's kind of what I'm aiming at now. It looks like the leg that's going to be to the farthest of the right is pretty much straight across from the leg that is farthest to the left. So I think I can go almost straight across there and probably find a good place to start it.
So you'll notice Ashley's putting his pencil up, and it looks like he's putting it up like right underneath the camera, pointing at the camera. But what he's doing
But my reference is straight ahead, so it's directly between my eyes and my reference when I capture an angle.
So right now you're mainly just using the reference that way to find the angles at this point, right?
That's right. Now there's some other angles in here. There's some, there's an implied line right here between these two legs that's going to help me determine if they're the right length. Pretty close. And then there's an implied line right here between the bottom edges of the two forward legs. So it kind of looks like I'm building a solid object right now. And then we'll start to find some of those spaces inside.
Now, in your mind, do you feel like this is kind of a simple object to draw, or do you feel like
I think it's deceptively difficult. I think it looks simpler than it is.
See, I think probably some folks are looking at the ladder and thinking it might be difficult. But I think that the approach that you're taking here is going to simplify the process.
I hope so.
And
I mean, I think it is a challenging subject. It's a single object. There's not a complicated composition here. So in that way, it appears to be simple. But there's some challenging relationships in here that have to be pretty accurate in order for the empty spaces that we're going to find soon to end up in the right, or approximately the right proportion. Let's go ahead and try to find some of those now.
And this would be a good object to work on drawing negative space too.
Right.
If you wanted to practice drawing just the negative space instead of what we normally draw, the positive space, that would be a good exercise, which is kind of what you're doing right now.
That's kind of what I'm starting to do now, right? We'll see how it goes. I'm going to jump back and forth between drawing the ladder and drawing the spaces around and inside of the ladder.
Now, what I want you guys to note from this is that there are lots of different ways to create a drawing. And I hear from folks a lot asking questions on why you did this a certain way or why you did that a certain way. And usually there's reasons for that, or I'm making a decision during the drawing process. But there are multiple ways that you can capture an object on a surface.
Exactly.
And right now, Ashley's drawing the negative spaces. That's one way, and that's a perfectly acceptable approach. So don't feel, the reason why I'm saying this is I feel like some people feel like there's a certain way you have to do things, or the way you're doing it is wrong. And that's not the case at all. There's lots of different ways to arrive at your goal.
Hey, that's kind of why I wanted to show the two-point perspective in the beginning, because this approach is so different from an alternate way to have drawn this subject. I used to have a professor that liked to always say, I've probably said it on the show before, that there's more than one way to skin a cat. And he was always meaning that there's more than one way to arrive at our, at our ultimate drawing, our final solution.
Or maybe he had cat skinning tools at home, and he had several different cat skinning tools.
Maybe he was literal. I just didn't understand that.
Maybe in his spare time, he found cats and skinned them.
He was trying to share something with me, and I missed the point. All right. Those look okay so far to me right now. They look okay. We'll see how it goes.
Okay. Marina asks, would it be easier to carve out the ladder from a cube shape?
I think that's valid, too. In fact, if I were going to make up the ladder from nothing, if I didn't have a reference at all, that's what I would start with. I would start with a cube and two-point perspective and then start carving it out. I love to draw that way. I think that's a great approach. Like a sculptor. Think like a sculptor.
And again, that approach might be easier for you. It might be harder for some folks, and that's fine. And Art by Vance says, will you be creating a grid in perspective to help with the accuracy? And I'll go ahead and answer that. Ashley showed the two-point perspective drawing of a ladder to begin with, where he used two-point perspective. In this case, he's keeping two-point perspective in mind, but he's drawing from observation. So he's not going to be drawing the perspective lines that go back to the vanishing points or anything like that
Nope.
in this drawing.
Okay, got a little discrepancy up here. We're not gonna get too hung up on it just yet. We're gonna keep going a little bit to the other side of the ladder, and then we'll keep moving some parts around, and then start looking at the ladder itself again instead of these empty shapes. But it is worth noting when you're working with negative shapes, there's each of these three shapes are not really separated from one another. They have some parallel relationships, or these three edges are really one sort of single line with two implications in the gaps. All right.
Okay, here's an interesting question from Red Rock. What point should you draw what you want to draw? I want to do figure drawing, but I can't even draw an apple yet. Should I wait to attempt figure drawing?
That's a great question. I do think it's a good idea to build up your level of difficulty. Drawing apples is going to help you draw people because they're round, bulbous, organic subject matter, and the body is made up of round, bulbous, organic parts. And so you're already on the right track, I think, by selecting fruit. And I would do some more fruit drawing, pumpkins and bananas, and you're going to find those same kind of forms all over the human body. So you're not drawing the human body yet, maybe. But you're drawing the same type of forms.
I think that's excellent advice. And you can draw an apple. You just might need to develop your skill in drawing an apple a little bit more. I can't stand it when people say they can't draw. And then I ask them, can you write your name? And of course they can write their name, so they can draw.
You can make marks on paper. And
Right.
That's drawing. That's drawing. You're doing it. Even if you're not totally happy with them, you're still
Right.
doing it. All right. We'll just keep working over here a little bit. We're starting to get a little three-dimensionality there in our forward leg.
And just to continue with that, the one thing you want to make sure that you don't do or try to avoid, and that is frustrating yourself to the point where you give up or you stop. It's very important to persevere and to continue to practice, and that's where you see the improvement. The problem is sometimes people will attempt maybe subjects that they think are or maybe that are maybe too difficult for them to try at that particular point, and then they get frustrated because the work doesn't turn out the way they want it to, and then they just stop completely. Don't let that be you. Just understand that if you're wanting to do figure drawing and figure drawing is more difficult to you than drawing an apple, which it would be for anybody else on the planet, just persevere and be patient and allow your skills to develop slowly over time.
All right, now I do have a leg coming up somewhere around here. And I want to go ahead and I feel pretty good about this shape, actually. It's looking pretty good.
Good.
The width of these two legs from corner to corner is about the same width as the height of this leg in the far back. And the height this way. Totally vertically, not at an angle. So that's what I was just comparing, the length of the back leg to the width of these two forward legs. And that looks pretty good. That comes down right near the corner. So I feel good about that. I'm not going to need to move these legs much around. I might need to mess around with the width and the size of them, but their placement looks pretty okay. I think that this step may need to come down just a little bit. So we may be moving some interior parts.
Okay, Wendy says, hello from Warwickshire, England. I would have such a time saying that. I have enough trouble talking as it is. What's the best paper for pencil drawing? Sorry, just tuned in. The reminder didn't go off. The best paper for pencil drawing is going to be different depending on what approach you're taking with the graphite pencil, and sometimes even what subject you're doing. So it's going to vary depending on the technique and the subject matter. For example, personally, when I'm doing a scene that has a lot of trees or bushes or things like that have a distinct texture, I actually like to work on charcoal paper with graphite because it helps me create that natural looking texture of the bushes and the trees and so on. But for different subjects, I may want to work with Stonehenge paper, which is a softer 100% cotton paper. And I think it's just going to vary on the subject and the approach that you take. If sometimes you're going to want to use a blending stump and do some smudging, and that, of course, is going to affect the paper that you use is going to affect the marks that you get from the smudging. I would probably not smudge if I was working on charcoal paper with graphite, which might seem strange, but that's just specific to the way I like to work. So it's different for every artist and different subjects and different approaches that you take. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. It's sort of you just have to try.
Right. There's lots of best papers out there.
You just have to try them and find out what works for you.
Right.
So I know that's a non-answer.
Well, it is an answer because I think that people are looking for the best pencil, the best drawing paper, the best pastels, or whatever. And frankly, there are lots of brands out there that are fantastic and are going to be the best for a lot of people. The best for me might not be the best for you. So that is an answer, although a very vague one.
That's a good answer. All right. All right, I'm pretty happy with how that leg came out. I've got a little teeny gap there, and I was a little nervous about that. Just a couple of more parts to put in, and then we can start working on some refining our edges and doing some shading. There's a pretty cool little shadow under here.
And what's interesting here is well, it shouldn't be a surprise because you did use the edges of the picture plane to kind of figure out where the edges of the ladder are, but the result is your ladder is exactly the same height as the photo reference that we're seeing.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
How about that?
It's matched up perfectly.
You know, when Matt and I started setting up, usually we have to mess around with how zoomed in or zoom out the camera is for the size of our picture plane. And I just laid the paper down, and it happened to fit into the video window just perfectly. So kind of got lucky there.
Yeah. Well, we need to knock on wood or something.
Yeah, I know.
Doesn't usually work that way.
Now we'll see what happens.
Usually
we'll have a disaster story for you next week.
I forget to turn on a mic or push the wrong button or something. We still have 29 minutes in your drawing, so there's still plenty of time for something catastrophic to happen.
Well, the camera that is over the drawing is low on battery. So
it is.
It could happen.
But it shouldn't run out of battery nowadays.
I probably shouldn't have said that out loud.
Karen Naturally Art By says, I use pens and pencils I like. Brand doesn't matter to me. And I think that's the way to go. I think that's it does take a little bit of initial investment to kind of play around with different brands and different types of paper and so on. But that's knowledge that you're gaining, and you're learning what tools work best for you. So are you using the same grade of graphite?
Right now, I've got an HB pencil. Okay. Is that what you were wondering?
Yes. Yeah, and I saw you move your pencil over because you were getting ready to address that.
I've got an HB pencil. I realized I started shading, and I do have a 2B I'll probably switch over to. So it looks like I've got some different brands. I'll be mixing a Faber-Castell with a Stiedler.
And are you going to do any blending? Or?
I have a blending stump, but I just don't know. We'll see how it looks on the feed.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I like to not use the stump.
I like to not use a stump too. Sometimes you just have to use a stump.
That's right.
For some textures and some surfaces, but
so we'll see. All right, now let's see. Interestingly, this what looks like a step on the back side of our ladder, the bottom edge of that step is practically in line with the top edge of the bottom step on the front of the ladder. So you can use that line possibly to help you get started with that step. Again, there's a kind of an inline relationship there. So we can use one part to help us find another part. Okay, Red Rock asks, is the year-long lesson plan good for solo students, or is it just for teachers?
The year-long lesson plan is designed for teachers, but we also offer student accounts that are typically purchased in bulk by schools, systems, schools, or teachers. And when students log in as a student, the year-long lesson plan looks different than it does for a teacher, obviously. Some of the teacher resources are shown when teachers log in, and they're not shown when students log in. So, yeah, students could go through the year-long lesson plan on their own for sure. Hopefully that answers the question. Alana says, Matt, I've lost track. Is next week our last Getting Sketchy for this season? No, next week will be the last episode where we draw.
That's
and
right.
then we will have another episode where we review all the drawings that we've done from this season. Then we'll take a short break, and then we'll be back again. So I know you guys love Getting Sketchy, and we'll try to make the break a little bit shorter this time. But it should fall right in line with the holidays and New Year. So
Yeah, it'll be a good time for a break.
Yeah, it'll be a good time for a break.
We'll be running into it right before, I think on the 22nd. That'll be, I think, our last broadcast for the season. That's a Wednesday.
So clearly Ashley is on top of the calendar more than I am. I don't even know what day it is.
I've surprised
It's
myself.
Wednesday.
I usually don't have dates like that in my head.
Yeah, you just popped that out real quick. Let's see. There's a comment here. With so many brands coming out with new products constantly, easy to get caught up in the best product mentality. It has been difficult, but I've been trying to focus on learning new techniques instead. I think that's a good approach. And yeah, with all the products coming out, you have to be a little bit aware of the fact that it is possible for new brands to pop up, especially on Amazon, where they'll white label products. And I know a lot of you probably don't know what that means, but what that basically means is they'll get a company to make the product, usually in a country where production is inexpensive. And then people can, or companies can package those products and put their own logos, their own information on the package. And what happens a lot of times when you have a lot of white labeled products is you have a lot of products that are exactly the same. They just have different labels on them, different names, and so on. So those are the things that you have to watch out for. Some of the, not saying that those products are bad or anything like that. Some of those products are great, I assume. But that's one reason why we see so many brands with so many products coming out, especially on Amazon. It's fairly easy for new folks to come into a market like art products and create new art products that may look a little bit different from the other ones out there, but they're very similar.
Almost forgot our hardware. We're going to have some little metal pieces in there so that we survive.
Oh, yeah.
Something to hold our ladder together.
Lisa asks, is there a different password for students to access the year-long lessons? The student memberships are set up manually, and it's where schools or school systems purchase memberships in bulk. In fact, the smallest package that we offer is 20 students. So that's the minimum amount of students that will have student accounts set up. If you're looking for students to have individual access, then they need to have individual memberships. But if you're dealing with a class or 20 students or more, then you can head over to thevirtualinstructor.com, go to our sales page, and if you scroll down the page, you'll see a link to the student membership program, so you can check that out. But again, that's usually purchased by school districts or schools. I don't think we've ever had a single teacher buy the program without going through their school for their students. Yeah. So hopefully that helps a little bit.
All right, one thing I'm doing is I shade these legs as I'm starting my pencil on a contour and going away from it, and starting on the contour and moving away from it, just so that I stay inside the line, kind of like that. So just a little tip when you're shading in really small areas. I'll do it again over here. Instead of just going back and forth, I'm going only in one direction with my strokes. So the tips of one side of my strokes is sharp and the other side is soft and blurry, and that'll incorporate into the rest of my shading pretty well, but I kept it sharp down here. So you don't have to make strokes in both directions all the time.
And you're also making strokes that flow along the outer contours.
For the most part,
too,
as opposed to like this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for the most part I am. I did a little bit of shading towards the vanishing point up underneath here, but the strokes really aren't showing up that well anyway. So I'm just going to stick with these some of these longer strokes. My pencil lead is relatively flat and dull now, so the strokes should touch one another and sort of melt into one another pretty well with a slightly dull pencil tip. So I'm just trying to find some value in areas that's going to need to get darker. But I'm just trying to separate the light from the dark right now.
Karen asked, Matt, have you or Ashley tried the Faber-Castell matte graphite pencils? I still have not tried those. I know that they're very popular from what I'm seeing online, people posting videos about them.
Yeah.
I have not tried them yet. I'm sure I'll get to try them at some point, and assume the same is true for you.
Yes, I haven't tried them yet either, but they sound exciting. I like a matte surface anyway. I like to use matte varnishes sometimes on paintings, so
I like anything matte.
I knew that was coming. I like gouache as a paint. I think it's got a cool look to it. And it has a matte surface when it dries.
Yeah, that's just a real drawback to traditional graphite pencils, is how shiny they get.
Yeah.
All right, here's a question for you. What's your favorite Getting Sketchy drawing you ever made on Getting Sketchy?
Gosh. I don't know. I really did like the plugs that I drew. Those plugs were pretty nice. The lock and key, I like that one a lot too. Those are both from the previous season. And the extremely challenging and nerve-wracking stairs that I drew 2 weeks ago, I really like that drawing. I was looking at it today. So that was just 2 weeks ago, and that was a harrowing experience. I had to redo my stairs about 10 minutes into the drawing, but I like it and enjoyed the challenge. So I would say those three stick out in my mind.
My favorite for you are the shoes. The tennis shoes.
The Converse shoes?
Yeah, I think they
from
turned
last
out right.
week?
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah. They read very well.
Thank you. I'm glad.
For myself, though, I have no idea. I'm sitting here trying to think of all the ones I've done. You know what? I think my favorite Getting Sketchy drawing, I think I did this for Getting Sketchy,
Yeah.
was a crab. And I think it was like years ago when I was by myself.
Yeah, I think I've seen that one.
Yeah, I think that was probably my favorite
Okay.
for Getting Sketchy. I'm trying to remember. I can only think of 3 or 4 ones in my head right now.
They're all running
and there's
together now that
way
you're on the
more
spot.
than that.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and start getting a little darker, and I'm going to change the background a little bit. The white surface that my bladder is resting on is very, very close to the back or the far leg. So I think I'm going to move that up a little bit. I'm just not exactly sure where the right place is. I mean, I don't want to put it here because that's right where those steps are. And if I get too far above that, let me try.
I think that's a good place.
That's pretty good. I think
Yeah.
that'll be okay. I want us to make sure I stay below the midpoint. So
Yeah.
I think we'll go there.
And can you explain why you don't want to put that line in the middle of the picture plane?
Well, it would just kind of be static and boring a little bit. Our eye moves around a little bit better. If we've got a difference in these two ratios. Honestly, it's a little far from the golden mean, but it's kind of close to it. It's maybe a little bit above the third two. But if you're familiar with the golden mean or the golden ratio, then that's what I was looking for. I was kind of looking for that area in the artwork. And if you're not familiar with the golden mean or ratio, look it up. And you can use it as sort of a compositional guide Renaissance artists did it, ancient artists did it, and modern artists are still doing it.
Mm-hmm. And it's basically a more complex. I should say the rule of thirds is a simplified version of it.
That's right. It's a simplified version. It's very close to the golden mean. The golden mean relates to the Fibonacci sequence for those of you mathematicians out there.
Now, is this your step ladder?
Yes.
Do you use it still?
I use it to
Was
turn
it at school?
It's in my classroom, and I use it to turn my TV on and to turn my TV off every day because the battery in my remote has been dead for 2 years. And I don't need a battery because I've got a step
the batteries
ladder.
are like 2 inches long, and you've got like a 3-foot ladder.
Yeah, and I just break this thing out every morning and afternoon.
Definitely more fun to climb a ladder than to push some buttons on a remote control.
Well, I'm not a towering individual, and so it gives me a chance to be above everybody for just a couple of seconds a day.
You should just stand on the ladder at the front of class every day.
Build
Just
myself
get
a
you
little stage up there.
Get a little podium up there. Just so it doesn't look, it looks like you're climbing back just to climb on stage. You're walking back to climb on stage. You step up. You would be super tall with that ladder.
And of course, I have a small classroom, so a lot of things I have to store up really high. And so I can use the ladder to help me get stuff like that down too. And a remote control is not going to help me get stuff off top shelves. So this is more useful than the remote control anyway. It actually saves space to use this, maybe, in some kind of way. I will just indicate, put just 3 little C shapes up here, not whole circles, for some of those little details. We're going to throw some value in the background soon, and then we'll come back to our ladder. I may use the stump after all. Let me just get it in here a little bit. Just a little bit. I think
It's one of those decisions that once you go, there's no turning back.
That's true.
You can't just have one little area blended and the rest not.
The graphite, it looks just on this tooth's paper, looks a little dithery in the feed. So I thought this might knock that down just a little bit. So I'm not trying to, press down really hard and destroy all of the subtle paper's tooth's texture. The paper's, I think I said that right. But I think it'll help the values just even out a little bit. Okay. I'm going to jump in the background for a little bit, and then we'll be able to see what these values really look like. So let's see. I have a Prismacolor 9B pencil. It has made an appearance before. It's got a really big piece of lead. We'll get started with it.
Okay, Peter says, have either of you used or heard, for that matter, of a comparator mirror? And I think I have seen it. I think it's a mirror that sets up and kind of displays your photo reference or the reference you're working from over the top of your drawing or painting. Is that what you're talking about? Or at least a piece of it so that you can compare what you've got to what you're drawing and painting. If that's the case, I've never used one. I've seen one used before, and it looks pretty interesting. I still can't work out in my mind how it exactly works, but it looks pretty cool the way it does work, and it does look like it would be naturally a great drawing aid, especially when you're trying to line up the edges of things, or if you're doing a portrait or something and you're trying to make sure that you've got the features in the correct location. But I have never used one before. I think I've seen one used before. Have you ever seen one?
No, I've never even
one?
heard that. I'd like to check one out.
I'm just wondering if that's what Peter's talking about. So if you can clarify that, might be something we explore on the channel in the future.
Since I'm going to use the stump, I'm not pressing down as hard as I could with the 9B pencil, because we're going to start to force some of this down into the tooth after all. I think I can. That was my test. I think I can go a little darker still. And
now, did you say what grade of pencil is that?
It's a 9B.
Oh, okay. "9B."
Pretty much
Very dark.
It's pretty much the end of the graphite spectrum of pencil weights.
And that dark background should make the ladder pop out and stand
Should.
out once
And
that
help
darker
us
value's in place.
Read these early values a little bit better.
Okay, Peter says yes. It sits at a 45-degree angle so that you can compare the original to your art. Yeah, it is hard to explain.
Interesting.
I've seen it used, and I can't even explain it either. But I guess it's the 45-degree angle, and it looks like a very small mirror too that just lays over. And I think you have to be at the right angle to view how it works with the drawing over the top. So, but it looked pretty cool when I saw it.
Yeah. This 9B wears down really, really fast. But I was able to roll it over to its other edge to find a sharp spot to box out some of these negative shapes. All right. And of course, working around the ladder is a chance to refine and sharpen some of those edges. I like to use the background for that.
Okay, Suzanne says there is a 14B in the matte pencils.
Holy mackerel.
And it's lovely in black.
Oh, I'll bet it is.
That does sound like it's...
I'll bet it is velvety. A 14B. When I have a large area like this, or relatively large, I like to change directions a lot. I'm laying down patches of graphite, an inch, maybe an inch square, and then changing directions. Letting these different directional changers mingle and overlap with one another.
Okay, Buddy asked, could you have been able to draw the ladder by drawing the background only?
With the negative shapes?
Yeah, I think that's what she's asking.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you would eventually have to go in and put some overlapping in the shape of the ladder, you know, just to figure out where the steps and such are. But you could, and actually I do that as an exercise with my drawing students. I will give them a subject like this. It's usually a wooden chair, a school chair, and I ask them to not draw the chair. And so that they end up with a shape of a chair that's totally put together and no leg is in front of or behind another. So we just kind of leave out the details of the chair. In this case, we've got the details of the ladder are in there, but we did try to draw at least this segment of the ladder by drawing the background shapes. So
Yeah,
definitely.
You know, this would be a good subject for the highlight rendering with charcoal.
Yeah, it would. All right, there we go. Closing in on a couple of our last negative shapes.
That dark background makes a huge difference, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
It's all about contrast and value
It
and
is.
producing a full range or creating a full range. And those marks or the shapes of darker value that you added, the shadows on the ladder, seemed so dark just a moment ago.
Like the legs of the ladder themselves?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Not so much anymore. It's all relative, I guess. All right, looks like we got 7 minutes and actually plenty to do. We'll just take this as far as we can.
Kieran asks, can you mix charcoal and graphite in a drawing?
I don't know. I mean, one's matte and one's shiny. I don't.
Yeah, you definitely can, but I think if you're wanting a drawing that looks representational, you probably need to choose one or the other, because like Ashley said, the graphite is going to be shiny, and you might find that the charcoal does not cover the graphite, so that could introduce some issues for you. I would stick with all charcoal or all graphite, but of course, you can do anything that you want and break all the rules and experiment and try things.
That's right. All right, now we can get a little darker in the legs of our ladder and know that it's okay in relation to the background. It's important to, to look at the reference, because they're not, the shadowy sides of the ladder's legs aren't actually all the same. This one back here appears to be just a little bit lighter. Even though they're the same plane, they're facing the same direction and receiving the same amount of light, still a little bit of a difference there.
Let's see here. Silver Pun asking you a question. Would it also be a good idea to use a colored black pencil for such dark areas instead of graphite?
Like a
black colored pencil.
Like a color pencil.
Yeah.
I don't know. The black of a colored pencil is so different than the gray of a regular pencil. I'm afraid you're going to have this sort of a disconnected look. I would stick with graphite just for unity. Unity is one of our principles of art, and we create unity not through like the elements of art, like color schemes and things like that, but with things like material choices. And so in this case, I think you would lose some of your unity. And there are plenty of media that can be unified together, that mix well together and look good together, but I just really don't feel like colored pencil and regular graphite are two of those. Good question, though.
Peter brings up a good point. Just in my mind, I was thinking dark charcoal. But yes. Peter says the Rhino was graphite and white charcoal. Love that live course. Yeah, that's true. I use graphite and charcoal together, but it's white charcoal that I use with graphite. And as we've established, white charcoal really isn't charcoal. It's what did we say it was? Silica.
It's like calcium carbonate.
Calcium
I think
carbonate
that's sticking in my head, but
what the rumor is anyway.
What the rumor is. It's a material that works and feels like it works like charcoal.
Right, and it does behave like charcoal, and you do have to be careful when you combine graphite and white charcoal, because the white charcoal doesn't cover over graphite very easily. But yeah, that's a good point. I would not use gray charcoal or gray graphite with black charcoal though. So thanks for that, Peter.
Yeah,
very good. And Alana points out, I've mixed charcoal and pastels, but never charcoal and graphite. Yeah, you can definitely mix charcoal and pastels together.
Yeah, they have a similar look on the surface. All right, I'm just doing a little bit of stump work down here, around and underneath our ladder. Just pulling some of the graphite that's already there. I did put some little dark accent marks right where the ladder meets the surface with my 9B pencil, and just using that dark mark to pull out a little bit of ground shadow or cast shadow. All right.
Somebody just said, hi, just blew my iPad screen to blow the eraser marks away. And I like those vertical lines there on the edge. It gives it a different, it's a different texture from the wood, and it should feel like a different texture.
Well, that's what I was struggling with. You know, it's a piece of metal, and so I needed to do something to it. So,
well, that works. So that definitely separated it.
Just a few.
A little indication of some wood grain coming in here.
Just a few wood graining marks in the last minute or so.
Final minutes.
Dun, 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 dun.
Isn't that from Mario Kart?
Yeah, it is.
Or I guess it could be from any Mario game, right?
Yeah, one of the
Dun,
Mario
dun, dun,
Karts,
dun, dun,
I
dun.
beat that game, and then I beat it backwards.
You beat it
You
backwards?
can play all the races backwards after you.
Oh,
beat
really?
them.
Driving the tracks backwards?
Yeah, and I drove
Okay,
all the
interesting.
tracks backwards and beat it that way too. So, I don't know what was going on in my life at the time.
You were into Mario Kart.
Yeah, the
on
kids
the Wii,
would
or
the kids
what?
would go to bed, and my wife would fall asleep on the couch, and I would go downstairs and just go Mario Kart crazy until I got tired. So that's the truth. All right. Well, 41 seconds. We're just about there. There's some little details not in here. Some
Priya says,
screws.
"Great job, Ashley, as always." Smiley face.
Well, thank you.
A big smiley face.
It's like I said, it's not a dazzling subject. It's not a beautiful flower, but this is the type of subject that will really help you improve your drawing skills faster. And in fact, my first year in college, all my professors really did were turn over the stools and easels and chairs in our classroom, and we would draw those for about a year. And then the second year, we started drawing from a live model. So I did a lot of this empty and negative space drawing in my first year in college, and I think it was really, really beneficial. Very beneficial.
You said the subject's not dazzling, but if you glued a bunch of rhinestones to it, it would be bedazzled.
It would be dazzled.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right. I might have to do it just right around the border.
Right. Just
Like a rhinestone ladder. Like a rhinestone ladder. All right.
Yeah, it looks great.
Time's up
Looks
on this
good.
one. That was a lot of fun.
I like the shadow, the cast shadow.
Thank you.
underneath
Yeah,
the-
it was all the dirty stump, and it's good for is cast shadows. But I hope you guys enjoyed this drawing. If you followed along, and if you finished along with me, I think that that was my goal. I wanted to try to choose a subject matter that we could stay a little bit closer together on this week, since I worried about your experience with the crazy stairs 2 weeks ago.
Buddy says, gosh, time is so running if you draw along. Yeah, I'm glad that you said that, because I think most people just watch
Yeah.
and don't draw along, and it is very difficult to complete a drawing in 45 minutes, no matter what the subject matter is.
It is.
So it is very difficult to do. And also when you're trying to do some teaching in there too, and talking, and it's all live.
Yeah, what we really have
stressful
is
for us.
What
here.
would be if Matt and I were working alone, at our own drawing boards, and he and I weren't here to talk. What we're really making is about a 35-minute drawing, because we do move a little bit slower because we're talking and thinking. Believe it or not, we're trying to think about what we're saying sometimes. I know it doesn't always seem that way. But it does use a little bit of our brain power, and I have a limited amount of brain power anyway.
Oh, gosh.
So there we go. All
Yeah,
right.
me too.
All right, I'm done. I'm going to stop touching it. No, maybe just a little bit more. All right, I'm going to stop touching it.
All right. Well,
All right.
if you have any last questions, now's the time to ask them, because we're actually ahead of schedule tonight. Usually when that comes up, we still have more work to do. And tonight, Ashley knocked this one out pretty much inside of the 45-minute time frame. So I'll
Yeah.
give a couple more minutes for any
Yeah.
questions or comments to come up here.
And while you do that, I'll just get a little bit darker.
Yeah, you got some time to make it a little bit darker.
because I think I could stand to do that.
Let's see here. I think when the season ends, I'm going to go through a lot of these sketches. Yeah, definitely do that. And I can't. I have no idea what season we're on now.
Is it
6, maybe
5 or 6?
5 or 6.
'Cause I haven't been here since the beginning, so I think this is the 3rd season that I've been with you.
Yeah. So there are some really old Getting Sketchy episodes existing out there somewhere on YouTube. So there's more to discover there if you've just been following along in the recent series. Let's see. Okay, Gregory says, I definitely draw along. Excellent.
That's
And
great to
says, you
hear.
guys are amazing. Great work. Thanks, Gregory.
Thank you so much.
And Buddy says, I can imagine how stressful this is for you, Matt and Ashley. Wow, I'm even more impressed than ever. Well, we probably put more stress on ourselves than we need to, but it is stressful.
It's a good kind of stress.
Yeah, it's a good kind of stress.
You know, I used to be in a band in middle school, and you get nervous before the curtain comes up. It's that kind of stress.
Yeah.
It's positive.
When I played in bands, I would get so nervous.
Yeah.
But when thinking back when we were playing in clubs and stuff, I wasn't as nervous as when I was playing in church. It seemed like when I got older and I was
How
playing in
about
a
that?
church band, it seemed like I was more nervous.
Do you think it was because you knew the people you were playing for, as opposed to sort of just a faceless crowd out there, and you maybe know less of a percentage?
in a club somewhere, I don't know. That's a good question. I think maybe I just became more of a stressful person.
That's probably true. You were much cooler when you were young. I'm just kidding.
But and I don't know. I guess I don't know why that's the case. I think it's just because maybe my stress levels just went up.
Yeah, I'm glad I did that, because I'm going to leave it a little lighter up here in the corner. And
Yeah.
that adds just a little bit of something.
Yeah, a little bit of
a little bit
variety.
of interest up there, a little variety to that.
Yeah.
That rectangle in the background, and that's the direction the light's coming from anyway. So I'm glad I kind of went a little darker from this corner towards the top left corner.
All right, got a couple questions coming in here. Do you use a lighter pencil to block out the drawing? And
I do. I typically start with an HB.
yeah, and I'm assumed that might have been a part of the process that you missed at the beginning.
Mm-hmm. And HB is not really a light pencil. It's like a yellow pencil or like a number 2 pencil. It's sort of our medium weight pencil in our pencil continuum.
Okay, let's see. Do you guys do critiques for 100% of submissions, or is it a random few? And Red Rock, I'm assuming you're talking about the Members Minute. As you might imagine, I do get a lot of submissions, and I really only critique artworks that are 100% original and that are clearly finished. I get a lot of artworks that are sent, and they also have to be formatted in a way that I can open them, and the photography of the artwork also has to be decent enough for me to critique them as well. So,
And that's so everybody can benefit from them.
Right, exactly. So the points of the critiques are not necessarily, of course, it's beneficial to the artist that submits the artwork, but it's really for everybody who's a member to learn from the critiques. So even if I'm not critiquing your artwork, then you learn from the critiques of others. That's the whole point of critique, and that's why it's so prevalent in art schools. Obviously, it's helping the person who created the artwork, but it's helping everybody because you learn from those critiques. But no, I definitely don't critique 100% of the submissions. I just simply can't. And like I said, there are some that are kind of filtered out from the beginning because they're not formatted correctly or their photographs aren't good. And I honestly get a lot of submissions from artworks that were created from. Sometimes people copy drawings and paintings and send them, believe it or not. And obviously, I can't critique those.
Right. That's good to do for learning purposes, but not for critique and for your own artwork.
And also, I do not critique artworks that were made from any tutorial, because the compositional things. There's a lot of things that are already figured out if you are following a tutorial.
That's true.
Tutorials are great to learn from, but I don't really make it a habit to critique those because instead, I would just be, if you were critiquing art, if I was critiquing artwork that you submitted from a tutorial I made, I would be basically telling you how you need to make your artwork more like mine, if that makes sense. And that's not a good approach to help you learn and better yourself as an artist that's different from me, because we're all different artists and we're all going to create differently. And I feel like that should be nurtured. So hopefully that makes sense. So anyway, Priya says, you both are way cool. I had to read that comment. Thanks for that, Priya. I wish I felt cool. Let's see here. How about do a sketch with carbon pencils? I did one of those not too long ago for Getting Sketchy.
That's right.
There's one more episode this season where we draw, and it's going to be me next week. And I think I know the medium that I'm going to use, but I'm not going to tell you yet. But it's not a carbon pencil, but it's also not graphite, and it's also not colored pencils, and it's also not pastels. So Gregory says, I'm a delighted member. Thank you for that, Gregory. Glad to have you. And Oscar says, how do you guys pick your subjects? Well, this season we're doing motifs,
right,
which are basically a theme. Ashley's theme this season is things that you walk on.
Yeah,
so,
it developed organically. That's why it sounds so weird.
And my theme this series is food. So I'll be doing something with food next week. Let's see here. And someone says, how about a vintage illustration? If and they're referring to the critiques, if you are copying any artwork, whether it's a drawing or painting, no matter when it was created or developed, I will not be critiquing it as part of the Members Minute. I do, however, feel like at some time in the future, I want to do a series where I'm critiquing artworks by masters.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah,
Could you choose some vintage illustrations?
I have a huge list of videos to make, guys. I have
I think I would like to hear those.
I want to do a series of videos where I critique masters. It's called Critiquing the Masters. I haven't made one of those videos yet, but those will be out on YouTube at some point. So anyway, let's see. Oh, thank you for that, Alana. Alana says, Matt, you really don't feel cool? No, I don't. I hope you at least feel proud of how many of us that you have helped. And that means all the world to me, Alana. Thank you so much. That went straight to my heart. I really appreciate it. All right. Oh, no, she means a tutorial for a vintage illustration. Yeah, okay.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Lots of different styles of vintage illustration out there. Mm-hmm. So
I'm a Line Decker fan.
Yeah. Line Deckers. Pretty cool.
That's the gold standard for me.
All right. I think that's it. So let's go ahead and switch back out over here. All right. I definitely enjoyed watching Ashley draw that ladder. Ashley's ladder over there.
Ashley's ladder. I like the sound of that.
Yeah. Well, it's not Jacob's.
No, Jacob's not here. It's going to have to be Ashley's tonight.
I hope you guys enjoyed it too. And remember, next Wednesday we'll be live here again at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that's going to be different wherever you are in the world, of course. But if you are on our newsletter list, then you'll get an email reminder before we go live, a few hours before we go live. And to sign up for that newsletter list, there's a link in the description below. It says get free course videos and ebooks. You'll also get those free course videos and ebooks, but that will also put you on our mailing list so that we can tell you when we're getting ready to go live or when new videos, of course, are posted as well. So subscribe to the channel too, because I think YouTube notifies you when we go live as well. And if you want to check out our membership program, there's a link in the description below. We're getting ready to head over there right now to continue with our live lesson series, which the live lesson series are more in depth. We're not creating sketches there, we're creating finished pieces of artwork. And tonight we're going into part 5 of the series that we're working on right now. So anyway, stay safe and healthy, guys. Thanks for joining us. Ashley, have anything else for folks out there?
I enjoyed spending this time with you. Try to draw as much as you can between now and next week, and we'll see what food item Matt has in store for us then.
Yes, we will, because I don't know what the food item is, but I think I know the medium. So we will see you guys next week, and some of you we will see in just a few minutes. So with that, we're going to go ahead and sign out for this evening. Good night, everybody.